Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks.
This is Emily Hicks, and you are listening to the Elder Law Hour. As you know, I am a estate planning attorney and elder law attorney here in Jacksonville, and I like to focus on planning for your future. And today we are talking about dementia, and I have a couple of wonderful guests here with me today. We're going to be talking about the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia in general, how to detect it in your loved ones, some tips and tricks to communicate with your loved one who may be experiencing dementia. And also, we're going to take a deep dive into the process of moving a loved one into a facility. And how do you know when it's time? What are the costs, here in the Jacksonville area and in the Northeast Florida area? What questions you should ask if you have a loved one that has dementia? And how long should families expect their loved ones to be in a facility and what that process really looks like? So if you have any questions about any of these topics, you can give us a call today. We are live. So call us at 904-222-TALK and submit your question. We'll read it on air and answer it towards the end of the show. So first, let me introduce I have two very special guests today, Michael Saffy and Lyndsey Taylor. Now, Michael is the founder and president of SilverLink Consulting. That is a senior placement organization here in Jacksonville, and it serves 7 surrounding counties. He graduated from UNF with a degree in international business and finance, and he started SilverLink when he was just 27 years old after acting as a business office manager for one of the largest senior living companies in the country. Michael has a passion to meet the needs of seniors regarding their care, safety, and quality of life. His generosity of heart isn't reserved only for seniors and their families. He has been an active volunteer with the Wildlife Rescue Coalition of Northeast Florida and has helped to save hundreds of orphaned, injured, and displaced wildlife through rehabilitation and release back into the wild. That's really cool. He also serves in advisory roles for the Alzheimer's Association executive team, the Caregiver Coalition of Northeast Florida, and other local organizations focused on the betterment of senior care in Jacksonville. Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And quick introduction for my other special guest, Lyndsey Taylor, who was born and raised in Orlando. She has a Bachelor of Science in Gerontology from the University of South Florida. She has worked in dementia clinical research and the nonprofit aging world for the past several years, having seen 3 grandparents through the disease. Dementia and Alzheimer's are topics that are very close to her heart. She joined the Alzheimer's Association in 2022 to work to enhance Alzheimer's care, support, and awareness in the Central Florida area. Lyndsey, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am so happy to have both of you. I think we're going to have a really, really good conversation today. So, Michael, let's start with you. What is a typical day like for you as a consultant who is working with families to find somewhere for a loved one to live when they start experiencing decline?
So our day stays really busy. We help about 600 families a year, give or take.
Wow.
So we're really excited about what we do and how involved we are in the community. And SilverLink, a normal day for us is basically we're calling our clients, we're checking in on them on a regular basis, making sure things are going well. Some of the newer clients, we do an in-person consultation with them to go over what their budget might be, what type of planning they need to do to get benefits to pay for care.
Yeah.
That's a really important one.
It's a really big one.
We try to encourage them to proactively plan ahead. And then also, we go on tours with our clients in person as well. So we really try to offer this handheld concierge service to getting either the client themselves or their family comfortable with that transition into the right type of community for them.
Gotcha. Okay. And I want to get all into all of those steps and all of that planning in just a minute. Lyndsey, so for you are now with the Alzheimer's Association. So what is your job like with them?
There is no real average day in my job. It varies quite a bit, but my main focus is on community education and support groups for caregivers or people who are in the early stages of dementia themselves. So it could be giving a presentation to professionals or seniors about keeping their brain healthy, or caregivers about how to better care for their loved one. I could be at an art class for people with early stage dementia, or I might be sitting down with someone with dementia and their caregiver to talk about resources and options that are available to them.
Well, the Alzheimer's Association, I talk about you guys a lot, I feel like, on the show, because you really have it's a wonderful organization. There's so much support. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like what all support do you guys offer? Because just to say, you know, I have recurring clients that come to me and say how it has really saved them by joining some of the support groups with the Alzheimer's Association. As soon as they realize that something, you know, is happening with one of their loved ones, it has really been a godsend to them to be able to connect with other families and you know, have some support throughout the process. So can you tell us a little bit about what all you guys offer for support for families?
Well, when it comes to those support groups, we have them kind of for all walks of life. We have some that are specialized for a child caring for an adult child caring for a parent, or someone who does have Alzheimer's themselves, and those can either be in person or virtually over Zoom. And to access any of those support groups, people can call our 24/7 helpline. It's 800-272-3900. We also have a lot of great education and resources on our website. It would take me the whole hour to go through it all, but people can visit our website at alz.org.
Perfect. And yeah, and that helpline is really awesome. It's 24/7, right? And you actually speak to a live person?
You do speak to a live person. There's master level clinicians available to answer your questions. And if you are a caregiver, it's 2 a.m. and you just need to yell, that's okay too.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's really good to know. So let's talk about one of the common misconceptions or you know, mistakes that people make, which is, you know, I hear it a lot when people say, oh, you know, when we talk about dementia, because this month we've been focusing, you know, each of our episodes on dementia, and people really use Alzheimer's and dementia interchangeably like it's the same thing, but it's not. So can you tell us about that?
Yes. So dementia is the overall umbrella category for that collection of symptoms such as memory loss, changes in your thinking, changes in your behavior, your cognitive decline. Alzheimer's is just one form or one cause of dementia, but it is the most common cause. We believe it makes up anywhere from 60 to 80% of all dementia cases.
Oh, wow.
And some of the other common types are vascular dementia caused by strokes, or Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia, and there are a bunch more out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So really Alzheimer's, I mean, that's probably the reason why people, you know, it's the most common, right? So it's something that people are very familiar with and have heard a lot of.
Right.
Everyone kind of says, oh, and they say Alzheimer's too. I feel like people say old timers, or, you know, they get it right.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about, you know, there's also a lot of questions about when someone starts declining, you know, and they're getting up there in age, you know, how to know the difference between, you know, is it a form of dementia, or is it, you know, early signs of Alzheimer's, or is this a normal part of aging? You know, how do we know the difference? What are some of the signs that we can see with that?
Well, one thing to know is that some minor changes in your memory, your cognitive abilities as you age is normal. If you've been alive 80 years, your brain's been working for 80 years, it gets a little bit tired. For Alzheimer's and dementia, we're looking at things that go beyond that are interfering with our ability to live our daily lives and do the tasks we need to do. So it might be memory loss that's disrupting our daily life. And this is going beyond once a week I walk into a room and I don't know why I walked into that room. This could be, I don't remember the name that was just told to me 2 minutes ago, and that's happening constantly.
Now, Lyndsey, I experienced that. I already experienced that walking into the room thinking, what was I in here for?
And that's normal. And so another one we hear a lot is people might say, I lose my keys all the time. I think I'm getting dementia. Well, I lose my keys all the time. I hope I'm not already getting dementia or Alzheimer's.
Right.
What it is my brain is on 100 different things at any given time. I'm not actively paying attention to where I set those keys down, but I can come inside the house, say, okay, I went to the kitchen, I went to the living room, I went to the bathroom, and retrace my steps, and that's the key.
Okay.
But if I'm finding my keys in the freezer all the time, or I'm looking at my key and I don't know what to do with it, that would be a more concerning change towards Alzheimer's or dementia.
So it's really disruptive. It's something that you really can't, you can't reason it out maybe anymore. You can't, I like what you said, like retrace your steps, because, we have the ability to do that, but, when perhaps some of the early signs is not really having the ability to do that. And I'm just going to switch over to you, Michael. So when you're working with a family and you have, what is it like for you when you probably have a lot of family dynamics involved with trying to find somewhere to live? Yeah. Because we hear the first thing that anyone says is, I don't want to go to a home. I don't want to, don't let them. And most people are really, really afraid of, nursing homes in general. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about different types of places, because we have a lot of options for senior living now, right? So Absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Of course, yeah. So there's an entire spectrum of the senior care industry, basically. So they're, starting from the least amount of care and kind of the most fun and resort style. If you ever watch Seinfeld, think of like Del Boca Vista, right? Yeah. We have these 55 and up communities that might be more focused on just enjoying life and being more independent, but you're around people who are your age and might you're going to age in place there, right. Ideally. So there's independent living where there's no care, but they might provide some services like housekeeping, maintenance, all your monthly expenses are in one price, that sort of thing. And that's helpful for a lot of people that are getting older that might be a little bit forgetful, maybe in that beginning stages. So we see a lot of people who even live in independent living that have some mild cognitive impairment, which is like kind of like that beginning early stages of dementia.
Yeah.
And then as they progress, they might get into more and more care needs. So what we try to look at is how much help they need in what are often referred to as their activities of daily living.
Right.
So, if it becomes unsafe for them to live alone, or they're needing a lot more help than what can be provided in their own home, that's when we look at the next step, which is assisted living. And then when you become what we call an elopement risk, which doesn't mean, you're going to run off with your neighbor and get married in Vegas,
Which actually,
we've had it happen too. We've had that happen as well. Yeah. But yeah, so with the next step after assisted living is really memory care. And that's where most people, especially adult children, kind of realize, oh gosh, there's something wrong with my loved one.
Yeah.
So that is where, mom or dad might be getting lost in the neighborhood. They might be wandering around or God forbid, they're driving still.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people in Jacksonville that are older that maybe shouldn't be on the road. That's a really hard conversation to have.
It's a really hard one.
And unfortunately, that's usually what triggers us to come in and help too, is because there's been some kind of catastrophic event with a car.
Yeah.
And they just have to have that conversation. But the memory care piece is pretty much the exact same as assisted living. They have a little bit more activities and services that are based specifically around different types of dementia, but it's a secure assisted living, so they can't get out without assistance.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It has those secure measures in place so that, one can't wander off or, not be heard from again, hopefully,
Exactly.
because they've decided to, walk to, wherever they're going, their friend's house or wherever they're
Exactly.
thinking about.
And we'll come back and talk about it in detail, I guess.
Yeah.
Get our walk-off music.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about the cost of everything when we come back, because I know, with different levels of care, the cost goes up quite significantly,
Yes.
right, Michael? So we can talk about that. And I also want to get into, how grief can affect, and the guilt can affect families that need to find somewhere for their loved one to be. So we will be right back with Michael Saffy and Lyndsey Taylor.
This is Vicki Oakes, your St. Johns County Supervisor of Elections. The 2024 elections are coming. They will be here soon. Are you election ready? If not, and you need to be, you can visit our website at votesjc.gov. That's votesjc.gov, or contact our office at 904-823-2238. Make sure you are election ready.
Providing a safe environment for every person at the First Coast YMCA, especially children, is essential to the Y's mission as a community-serving organization. Many of the employees have taken classes and become certified guardians with a commitment to creating a culture of safety at all First Coast YMCAs. Find out how the YMCA can benefit you and your family at fcymca.org.
Hi, this is Anita Hiles with Realty Executives Oceanside. Join me, Kelly, and AJ every Saturday at 11 a.m. We have all the information for everything you need to know about buying a home, selling a home, investing a home, and much more. If you're new, we're absolutely not another boring real estate show. It's Rapid Fire Real Estate Saturdays at 11 here on Talk Radio WBOB.
Sunshine came softly through my window today.
Florida truly is the Sunshine State, and it shows in everything we grow. When you shop, choose fresh from Florida.
'Cause I made my mind up, you're going to be mine. I tell you right now.
Fresh from Florida. There's sunshine in every bite.
Welcome back to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. I'm here with Lyndsey Taylor and Michael Saffy today, and we are talking about dementia and finding a place for a loved one to live if they start experiencing some decline as we get older. So, Lyndsey, let's talk a little bit about what can a family do if you think that something is going on with one of your loved ones. What can a family member do, or what should we do at that point in time?
Well, whether it's the person themselves noticing changes in themselves or a family member noticing changes in their loved one, it's important to not ignore that. We want to go get some memory screenings done to see if we should be concerned, if there could be a diagnosis of Alzheimer's down the road. One of the reasons behind that is we have some new drugs out that can make an impact on the disease, but only if they're taken in the early stage. So we want to find out soon if we have Alzheimer's. The second reason is there are a lot of conditions that can mimic dementia symptoms that are easily treatable, like depression, urinary tract infections, vitamin deficiencies, thyroid issues, things like that. And if our memory concerns caused by something that can be treated with a pill, wouldn't we want to just fix it? So it is important to go get that done and where you can. So there are memory disorder clinics throughout the state of Florida that you can access for free memory screenings. If you need help finding one, you can call the Alzheimer's Association helpline.
Okay.
You also may want to see a neurologist or a neuropsychologist. This is going to go beyond what your primary care doctor can diagnose.
Yeah, because most people will just go to their GP first, right? So definitely get that referral over to a neurologist. And we have, I know we have some excellent people here in Jacksonville. Luckily, I always say we have really great health care here. So let's take advantage of it. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of new prescriptions, a lot of new drugs that are coming out that can help, but only in the early stages, right?
Right. Once our brain cells die, we can't do anything to get them back. So we have to try to slow the disease down before that happens.
So it's really, really important to kind of catch this as soon as possible. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So let's talk a little bit about, the stages of Alzheimer's. because, and it's one point I wanted to make too is, my husband's uncle was having we thought there were signs of Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. And it was actually his drugs were interacting, and like there was a bad drug interaction. And so when he changed prescriptions and things like that, he remembered everything. And we were like, oh, he's actually back. This is, he wasn't having any of those problems at all. So it's really important to kind of sort yourself out and know, what all you're taking, make sure that the doctor knows everything that you're doing, because even vitamins and things like that can have a weird effect on you. But let's talk about the new drugs that are coming out, because I know you guys, we had Donna Lee here with us a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about really moving into more of a treatment phase, with Alzheimer's rather than the research phase, right? And so that's really exciting to hear, for people to, give them hope of things are actually progressing in the right way. We are, making some progress on actually treating it and, helping slow down the progression. So what do we have available to us now?
So Alzheimer's was first described as a disease in 1906, and we didn't have our first medication to treat anything about it until 1996.
Oh, gosh.
Between 1996 and just a few years ago, we had a lot of drugs, but they only could treat the symptoms, which is helpful for some people for some amount of time, but it's doing nothing to stop the disease or slow the disease down.
Right.
It's just helping with behavior problems and things like that.
Yeah, just a Band-Aid, basically.
It's a Band-Aid, yes. And so now, in the past few years here, we've seen the first drugs ever that are targeting the underlying biological cause of Alzheimer's disease, the protein buildup in the brain. And by doing so, it's slowing down the disease progression, but only if instituted in the early stages of the disease. Like I said, once the brain cells die, we can't get them back.
So how do we prevent it in the first place? I think, that's... How can we, our brains are such a mystery, right? I think that there's so much that we still don't understand about it, but is there any way to actively try to prevent this type of decline?
So I don't want to say prevent, but I can say we can lower our risk of developing cognitive decline.
That's such a PC answer, Lyndsey. I wanted something, I want some insider information.
Well, I have some methods for you on how you can prevent cognitive decline risk. So one, you want to challenge your mind, whether that's learning a new skill, learning a language, learning an instrument, whatever it may be, something that gets your brain thinking in a new way.
Can I just ask you, I've heard that so I always brush my teeth with my right hand. I don't know about you guys, but if you brush your teeth with the other hand and you start doing things with other hands, that kind of helps your brain. Have you heard about that, Michael?
If you see me fiddling, it's because I'm left-handed and I'm trying to become right-handed again.
Oh, okay.
I think that is true, that using the opposite non-dominant side of your body targets a different part of your brain while you're using it, right?
I'm going to pretend that that's going to help me.
And so with the challenging your mind, if you do the crossword every day, that's great. Keep doing it, but that's probably not challenging you anymore. So you always want to be seeking something
Unless
new.
It's the New York Times or something like that, right?
And then staying in school as long as we can. Some formal education is healthy for our brains.
Oh.
Cardiovascular exercise, protecting our heads. So wearing a helmet if we're biking, riding a motorcycle, playing a sport, or preventing falls if we're an older adult.
Yeah.
So grab bars in the shower, handrails on the stairs, whatever we may need.
Gotcha.
Not smoking, controlling our blood pressure and our diabetes correctly with medication, eating a healthy diet, and the diet that research suggests for lowering risk of cognitive decline is a mix between the Mediterranean and the DASH diet.
Now, what's the DASH diet?
DASH is low sodium, and then Mediterranean is leafy greens, lean proteins like fish and poultry, healthy fats like olive oil, avocados, lower sugar, lower carb, whole grains.
Yeah.
Oh, Lyndsey, lower sugar, lower carb.
1 glass of red wine a day.
Yeah.
I like that part.
The low sugar diet does help a ton.
Oh, my gosh.
When we see some of our clients that are, in their 80s and 90s, and they're, going strong in independent or assisted living, we try to figure out what they've done differently.
Yeah.
And diet has a lot to do with it.
Oh, I'm sure.
It amazes me as a bigger guy. It amazes me, what the power of a good diet can do.
That apple a day, right?
And just knowing how your body changes as you get older. One thing that I learned when I was newer into the senior living industry is that, your sense of taste changes as you age. And sweetness is that sweet tooth that a lot of our grandmothers and parents have and things like that. That's one of the last senses to go with taste. So that's why, you always see older adults with candy and they're always snacking on something sweet, because that's one of the things they might be able to taste.
That's so funny, because when my mother started experiencing decline, she at the end, like, all she wanted to eat, and she was never really, she ate sweets. It wasn't like she wasn't extremely strict, but she was always a very, very healthy eater. Mm-hmm. But all she wanted was, really sweet things, like, towards the end. And I thought that was really strange. And I thought, well, maybe it's just a feel good thing or something like that. But it was probably having to do with, the taste buds and all the changes that were occurring with her.
That's right.
That's interesting.
That's why we serve dessert at every meal, in communities.
Well, speaking of communities, so let's go back to that. So let's say, what's your process like? Let's say I come to you and I say, my dad is, he really can't be on his own anymore. How do you look at our family and look at his situation and try to find the best fit for him?
Yeah, so we start with basically a 3-step process when we do our in-person assessments and consultations. The first is just going through his daily routine.
Okay.
So I think, and this is something that not a lot of healthcare professionals really have the time to go into detail over. They'll say, okay, Mr. Smith needs help with X, Y, and Z, and that might go in the chart, but they don't think about how does he do this? What does he need physical assistance with? And like we mentioned, before, fall prevention goes a long way. Where are those danger zones for him, throughout his routine?
Right.
So with that, we do basically an assessment of their daily routine that goes through all of their activities of daily living and what that looks like in detail. And then we do a financial assessment to an extent, not true like financial advising, but basically going over what their assets are, what their monthly income is, what benefits they might qualify that will help pay for services.
Yeah.
Because, unfortunately, all of these things that we talk about, assisted living, most in-home care services, anything that's considered a long-term need is not going to be covered by Medicare. And that's something that a lot of older adults are just shocked to hear.
It's a shocker.
Yeah, and it can be really expensive, which is why you need an elder law attorney to help you kind of plan proactively for some of these.
Absolutely. It's so true, because a lot of people don't understand that it's not covered. It's not something that it's not a benefit to you under Medicare. So it's, there's not a lot of ways to pay for that. And most people are going to be paying out of pocket. So you really have to, and that's where you can come in, because you are, I will say, Michael is extremely knowledgeable about all of the places, around the Jacksonville area and how to actually, get some assistance with paying for those.
Exactly. So when we do those consultations, the final part of that is a psychosocial evaluation. So we do kind of like what their cognitive level is. We also go into their hobbies and everything they like to do. So we can match it up with a community that might have those certain amenities for them that's in their budget that they can afford, and that ideally, again, they can stay and age in place in, because we don't want you to move multiple times. So one thing that we didn't talk about with the things that help keep you cognitively aware is the need for, or the lack of change in environment. Daily routine and keeping your routine really helps too.
Yeah, because when someone finds a place to live, and I hear this a lot, I don't want to move, Mom, again. So a lot of times you're looking really for that long-term solution for them to live out the rest of their life,
at the same place, not having to move again and again and again. So that's what we focus on. But yeah, so once we're done with all the evaluation points, that's where they get a detailed list. Basically, think of like if you're buying a house, like an MLS listing.
That's what I was going to say.
We have a
it's
database
kind of like
that they can look at.
A realtor for. I love
tell
it.
everybody we're just a social worker mixed with a real estate agency.
That's exactly right. Well, I look forward to talking about a little bit about what the costs look like for that when we come back. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Elder Law Hour.
Are you ready to invest in real estate without the headaches? Look no further than investjacksonville.com, your trusted partner in turnkey real estate investments. With over 18 years of experience, our process has been fine-tuned, and now we're opening up our team to other people just like you. At investjacksonville.com, we're selective about who we work with because we believe in delivering the best. Our dedicated acquisition team scours the market to find the finest properties, while our skilled construction and maintenance team ensures every detail is taken care of. From new roofs to granite countertops, HVAC systems to plumbing and electrical, we leave no stone unturned to make sure there's no surprises. We're in this together with our investors for the long haul. With our first-year guarantee, we put our money where our mouth is. We guarantee your rental rate for the first year, giving you time to build reserves and budget for any surprises that may come your way later. We believe in our construction team and our tenant placement team, which is why we offer this unbelievable guarantee. We're committed to your success and peace of mind. We're passionate about making it simple and easy and a no-brainer for others to get started investing because we know what real estate can do for people to reach financial freedom. So if you're ready to invest with confidence, contact Invest Jacksonville today at 904-536-3000 or visit our website at investjacksonville.com. Let us show you why there's nobody quite like us. investjacksonville.com, your authentic partner in hassle-free real estate investing. Contact us now.
What'd your mom pack you for lunch?
Let's see, a turkey sandwich, chips, and... Oh, fresh from Florida strawberries.
I'll trade you for some string cheese.
Sure, here's my sandwich and my chips.
No, I want the Florida strawberries.
Seriously? No way.
Can I throw in my juice box?
You can throw in your lunchbox. You're not getting my Florida strawberries.
Pack the snacks your kids want to eat. Look for the sunny, fresh from Florida logo where you shop.
How about my new sneakers?
Nope.
These earbuds?
Nope.
My backpack?
Nope.
Looking for a way to get involved with Jack's Hope in the Parkinson's community? Join us at the annual First Coast Parkinson's Run on April 13th at Riverside Park. The 5K run begins at 9 a.m. and a 1K fun run begins at 10 a.m. Bring the whole family for fun, food, and community. To register to run or to sponsor the event, go to firstcoastparkinsonsrun.com. Let's run to raise awareness, fight the progression, and cure the disease. We'll see you there on April 13th at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. This is Emily Hicks, and you're listening to the Elder Law Hour. So I'm here with Lyndsey Taylor from the Alzheimer's Association and Michael Saffy, who is the owner of Silver Link Consulting. So, Michael, we were talking about costs.
Yes.
So how much, let's just dive into this. So what are the ranges for the Jacksonville area? And I know that it differs a little bit depending on where you are, because Jacksonville is a very large, metropolitan area. So it's going to be a little bit different maybe at the beach than it is in other parts. But what are we looking at as far as like a range for these?
So I always base it off of like a private room with the with a little bit of moderate care, because most people that are going to move into a retirement community of any kind, that's kind of the baseline where they're going to be at. So and let me back up with how the community's charged too.
Okay.
So there's a one-time community fee. Usually in Jacksonville, that's about $3,000.
Okay.
That's a one-time entry fee.
Like a move-in fee type of thing?
Basically, yeah. It goes to pay for turning the apartment and,
Gotcha.
making everything look nice. The next is their monthly rent. So that's based on their floor plan. So if you go with a smaller studio unit, for example, that's going to be less expensive. We have some that are, 2,000 plus square foot villas that are like 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. So, depending on the floor plan, that's going to affect your price as well. And then the final aspect of it is going to be what they call your level of care. So in assisted living and memory care, they do an assessment based on your care needs. That's going to determine how much you pay in care charges as well. Okay. So if you're more independent, you're going to have a lower level of care in the beginning, and then ideally as you get older, that might increase. If you wait until the last minute and aren't proactive about maybe looking for a community and you're a high care need, you're going to pay more for that. Okay. And so all of those two costs, the rent and the level of care, get added together to form your total cost. So I always go off of private room, average level of care. Okay. For that, for assisted living, you're looking at an average of about $4,500 a month. Okay. And that's out of pocket, Now, if you go into memory care, that has gone up quite a bit post-COVID. So that is around $6,000 on average a month as well. Okay. Yeah. Now, the nice part is most memory cares are all inclusive of care. So that number doesn't change, whereas the assisted living could range a little bit.
Okay. I was going to say, so when you say all inclusive, I mean, that's meals, that's, what other services are included in that?
So in assisted living, you're going to get your 3 meals a day plus snacks. You're going to get activities. It's kind of like living on a cruise ship that just doesn't go anywhere. Right. It also includes your utilities, your cable, your internet, your phone in most cases. And then they have salons on site. They have other activities that they go to as well that may cost a little extra here and there. Right. But mostly includes all of your room and board charges and then your care on top of it. And they can do all kinds of care needs. So a lot of clients, they're shocked at how much assisted livings can do in the state of Florida under the regulations. Okay. So we can provide pretty decent care. I mean, most of our clients are never going to need a nursing home as long as they have proper assets to pay for care. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Because, they can be like in assisted living in Florida, you can be bedridden for a certain period of time. In certain communities, you can, when I managed extended congregate care communities, which is a special license of assisted living, we had residents who had feeding tubes. We had residents who had, some really high care needs that with proper nursing staff, you can meet those under the regulations.
And that's really important to know because, everyone is so afraid of going to a nursing home. I mean, I hear it all the time. And Lyndsey, I know you can speak to this too, because, everyone says they never want to do that. They never want to be put in a nursing home. That's a really big fear for people. And I hear a lot of families say, oh, we don't do that in my family. We don't put we don't put our loved ones in a nursing home. We take care of our family, right?
And it's easy to say until you don't have a choice.
I know. And I mean, the reality is you're not normal. You may be, but you're probably not a nurse. You're probably not someone that can devote 24/7 to the care of somebody else.
Well, and the other thing is, should you? So right. a lot of times when we talk to the families, we have to do, kind of a quality of life check on them. Is it better quality of life for that person to, live and eventually pass away in their home with limited socialization, with, maybe limited care by a loved one, things like that. Versus being in a retirement community where you have a team of caregivers taking care of you, instead of having a stressed out, adult child that, may or may not want to see you after a few months of providing like toileting care and showering and things like that. Absolutely. You become, as an adult child, you become the caregiver and the staff. You kind of lose that power as a son or daughter. Yeah. And so I always tell people moving to a community, you kind of change your role. You're not directly caregiving for your loved one, but you're managing their care. You're making sure that the community is doing a good job of caring for your loved one.
Exactly, because you still need that. You still need an advocate. For that purpose. But Lyndsey, there's a lot of guilt involved in when families get to that point where, there's a loved one that needs to go outside of the home, let's say. So can you just kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, there needs to be a quality of life check done for the caregiver themselves too, right?
Yeah.
You, like we were saying, you can say, we don't do that in my family, and that's great if you're capable of doing so, but let's be honest, people are working older and older now, retiring later.
Yeah.
It's not very easy to care for someone who might end up needing 24/7 care if you also have a full-time job.
Which a lot of people have to give up for caregiving. And then that's a hit for their income, for their retirement, for their life. So it becomes quite difficult.
Right. And we're seeing in Florida that 66% of caregivers have at least one chronic health condition, 29% have depression, and 14% say they're in poor physical health.
Oh.
So it is a very difficult job to be a caregiver, and unfortunately we actually see nationally that 18% of caregivers pass away before the loved one that they're caring for.
And that's amazing to think about, right?
Right.
I mean, stress. I mean, I could imagine. I mean, when my dad was going through it, taking care of my mother, and it was a 24-hour job. She did not sleep. It was really just absolute hell, for everyone. And the physical toll that it took on him, we were worried that he was going to end up in the hospital. We're like, you have to get help. You have to get help. And it, fortunately, I guess you can say, it didn't last very long. She ended up passing away quite quickly. But that's not always the case. And, the roles change, and it's you're no longer the spouse, right? You don't get to be who you are to that person anymore.
Well, and to your point too, we have to kind of consider the relationship, I suppose, as in, if I am the wife and I am 5'1" and I weigh 110 pounds, and my husband is 6'1" and weighs 250 pounds, and he can't transfer from bed to chair or bath anymore, that is going to have a really negative impact on my own physical health as well.
Absolutely.
And so everyone pretty much feels that guilt if they end up making the decision to place their loved one in some form of a facility.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to go if you're experiencing that is one of the support groups for caregivers. Probably at least half the people in that support group have experienced or are experiencing the same thing, and they can talk you through how they went through those feelings as well.
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? And Michael, I know you have an interesting story about that, with a caregiver actually experiencing a health scare during their journey of caregiving, right?
Yeah, so we're actually we helped a family this week and have been helping them for about a month or two now. But they were putting it off. There's a daughter, amazing daughter, who she's kind of in that sandwich generation. She's got her daughter at home that she takes care of and helps support, and her 91-year-old mother as well.
Oh gosh.
So it started off as kind of that, quality of life, like, hey, mom might be better in a community just because there's more to do. She was being left alone for, 8 hours a day, 3 or 4 days a week, so that the daughter could go and work. So it was just kind of she was safe, but it was kind of a discussion of what is the best thing for her.
Yeah.
And then it turned into an actual emergency because the daughter of our client was hospitalized last weekend.
Oh gosh.
Finds out that she needs emergency surgery and just has to make a decision quickly. So we were trying to get them benefits like through the VA and through the Medicaid waiver program.
Yeah.
Which required an attorney to come in and help and do some planning. So it takes a little while.
Yeah, it does.
So we thought we had a little bit of time, found out we had to do something this week. Luckily, we like proactive clients, but we help a lot of clients in crisis. We were able to get her into a short-term stay for now in a fully furnished apartment, nice apartment. It just costs a lot more than what I know they were hoping to pay because it's a crisis.
Of course. And yeah, we talk a lot about that. On the show, we have talked about Medicaid planning and things like that, because when the money runs out, you really don't want to wait until the money runs out. Because when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that we can do even in crisis mode. I have people come to me I have a client right now whose mother is already in the nursing home. She's been there since October, and they're thinking, hey, this $12,000, a month bill is not something that we can sustain. So what can we do? And fortunately, in Florida, we have a lot of really wonderful, I always say tricks, but it's not a trick.
Resources.
Resources. We have a lot of wonderful tools that we can use to get people qualified in that situation. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. You're listening to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks.
Are you approaching retirement or entering a new chapter of life? Now is the time to consider critical decisions that impact your future and the well-being of your loved ones. As you navigate this transition, ensure you've secured your legacy through proper estate planning. Don't fall into the common misconception that you and your spouse can make decisions for each other in times of legal incapacity without a plan in place. Without proper estate planning, you risk a probate judge making decisions for you, which can be costly and cumbersome for your spouse. Protect your assets and ensure they align with your unique circumstances and objectives. Avoid the default state laws that may not reflect your wishes and could lead to unintended consequences, such as disinheriting your spouse or forcing them to litigate your estate. You also may be considering the possibility of a new relationship after the loss of a spouse. It's essential to enter these relationships with clarity, safeguarding your assets and preserving existing family ties. A premarital agreement becomes crucial in these situations, providing legal protection and clarity. When it comes to your children, thoughtful estate planning is key. Protect their inheritance from squandering, divorces, lawsuits, and bankruptcies. Your hard-earned wealth should be a source of security, not vulnerability. Additionally, plan for long-term care, a significant consideration as you enter retirement. Secure a long-term care insurance policy while you still qualify, and explore alternatives that can convert into life insurance if not needed. Statistics show a 70% likelihood of requiring long-term care after the age of 65, making proactive planning essential. Our team can guide you through this process, helping you replace impersonal state-written plans with a tailored approach that safeguards your assets and family. Don't overlook estate planning as you approach retirement. Book a call with us today to secure your future with confidence. Visit emilyhickslaw.com and book a call today. We'd love to help.
Welcome back to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. We are here with Lyndsey Taylor and Michael Saffy today, and we have a question from a caller, Andrew. And Andrew says, my wife has not officially been diagnosed with dementia. However, she has been given a bipolar medication to treat dementia. I have a POA, a power of attorney, but I'm still having trouble getting information because of HIPAA. So who do I go to get her officially assessed, and why am I having trouble getting information even though I have a power of attorney? So Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about, when you're dealing with families like this, what is the first step for them with who they go to first?
Well, the first step really would be to look at who prescribed that and what doctors they've seen, so get a little bit of a history of that.
Yeah.
And then, like we talked about earlier, maybe trying to get a referral to a neuropsychologist or a neurologist to get them officially diagnosed.
Yeah.
Without that, I'm going to use a industry term, but without the NC-BAT, which is short for the neurocognitive battery test, that's really what we try to get first. And, then take it from there. Yeah. But the part two of that is really your realm,
it is.
Right?
On the legal side, part of a complete plan is going to be also including healthcare. So a power of attorney, I always say this because it's so true that not all powers of attorney are created equal. They don't always have everything that you need. I mean, when you're going into these latter stages of your life and you're looking at possibly doing some planning, like we were just talking about with, maybe Medicaid, maybe, you're looking for long-term care needs, things like that, you really have to get a specialist, that handles an elder law attorney, that handles those types of things, because there's a lot of nuances to that. And there's a lot of powers that you have to grant specifically for those, those types of planning procedure or methods that we use. So I would just say that the power of attorney is not always going to have everything that you need. We do include some medical provisions in our power of attorney, but I also prepare a healthcare surrogate. So there's a designation of healthcare surrogate, and that's going to be your medical power of attorney. And that's going to give you the right to talk to the doctors to make healthcare decisions for your loved one if they cannot make them for themselves. So part of a complete estate plan is, we talk about trusts a lot. We talk about wills, of course. Power of attorney is a very, very huge one, but really that's going to be more on the financial side. And you really have to also complete the plan with the designation of healthcare surrogate. And that's going to give you the right to make healthcare decisions for your loved one. And then also, I would suggest having a HIPAA release, because it's just going to be super helpful when you're dealing with medical institutions. That's something that lawyers can prepare for you and include in your plan. The HIPAA release a lot of times is also going to be in the designation of healthcare surrogate, to be honest. Like, we kind of put everything in everything because, I even put it in our trusts and in other documents as well, because we want to make it as complete of a plan as we can and cover all of our bases. But that is, Andrew, that's probably, what's going on with you is that power of attorney probably doesn't have all of that, all of those authorities in there. So I would suggest, even though your wife may be experiencing some decline, I just want to tell you that it's not hopeless. That even if she has been diagnosed with dementia, I can still help her. In most cases, I mean, it doesn't always mean that the person no longer has capacity, because one day they will. One day they won't, and we got to just catch them on the right day. Right?
And the state of Florida allows for that too.
Well, our ethics rules actually, that is part of the ethics for lawyers, is that we assume someone has capacity to execute a document. And, we do a little test. I talk to them. I make sure they know, what it is they're signing, what it is they're doing. We have our little, things that we do. And it's fine. I mean, it is so much better to get your paperwork done on your own accord and preserve your autonomy than not having anything done and have to go get a guardianship.
Well, and not just to get it done either, because I find a lot of people, they learn the hard way. They might try to go print something off the internet that they think will work, right?
Yeah, I see those all the time.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately.
They just end up coming to me anyway.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to spend the money twice, unfortunately. So, I'm a big fan of just doing it right the first time. And that really does take a professional attorney. And somebody like you, like Emily Hicks Law.
Well, it does. I mean, because, we know what you need. I mean, and when we go through a power of attorney, I mean, it sometimes is, 30, 40 pages long. I mean, that is very daunting to people, and it's a little bit scary. And people think, I'm giving all my power away. Like, they're so concerned about it because they don't want to give away, any of their authority or any of their power. But what you really have to keep in mind is, if you don't do it, then someone has to get a guardianship over you. And let me just tell you what that is. That means that your loved one, or whomever it is that wants to be appointed guardian, has to sue you. Okay, they are bringing a lawsuit against you to take away all of your rights, basically. And the cost of that is, gosh, I mean, it's like $15,000,
it's and I always put it in perspective of those like POA packages, because it's a pack, what he needs, like Andrew needs a package deal. So what would you say? It's 3, 4, 5 times the cost to do a guardianship?
Oh my gosh. At least, yes, at least. I mean, it's crazy how much a power of attorney can save you, just the power of attorney alone. But yeah, you do need to have it complete, because there's just, I mean, it's such a superior way, to plan for the future. And the lack of planning, I mean, you can imagine too, because if someone is experiencing decline, and what you have to do in a guardianship, and I personally do not do guardianships, but what you have to do is you have to present evidence. Okay, so there may be some things, and I know, Lyndsey, you've, with your experience with Alzheimer's, I mean, people that have diminished capacity, they don't always act the way they normally would. Right? So, I mean, you're bringing all this stuff to light, and you're bringing this, case, and you're having to present all of this evidence of all of these maybe crazy things. Maybe they've run around without clothes on. Maybe they've, there's some people they're not in their, right mind. And so you have to bring all of those, things to light. And how devastating is that? I mean, you talk about lose your autonomy. I'd much rather sign a POA, than have all of these things, brought into a judge who's going to make a decision about taking all of your rights away. And that is permanent. And then that continues on too. So it's not just a one and done. It's something that you have to continue on and report to the judge as a guardian, every year. I mean, it's, as far as like planning and Medicaid planning, like we were just talking about getting, things paid for, we can, it's so easy to drop that in a POA. You have to get all of that approved, by the court when you are guardian as well. I mean, Michael, you probably have had some experience with that. It's, it's not easy.
Well, and you touched on something that's big for me too. So another, kind of real case that we had late last year. It's not always the big things, it's not always, mom's running around naked, through the neighborhood, right? It can be some of the small things that adult children or others don't notice. I personally had to petition for guardianship of a woman in Ponte Vedra late last year because, she had cognitive impairment to the point where she wasn't paying her bills, and there was no one in her life to be able to step in as a power of attorney. So we had to get her some extra help, because if she had not, paid her mortgage, when I first visited her, she hadn't paid her utility bill. So, here's somebody on oxygen that may not have power, right?
Yes. Not a good situation.
Not a good situation. And it's an even worse situation when you start digging and find out, that the mortgage hasn't been paid. There's liens on the home. There's, potential foreclosure, all of these things that, are just drastic. And so, and this person, if you looked and talked to her, she seemed fairly normal, a little confused, but relatively normal. But under the surface, once you start digging, there's all these issues. That's why, just be a nosy neighbor, be a good advocate.
Right.
And if it's your loved one, just start that conversation, and don't be afraid to ask those questions sometimes. Yeah,
you have to, because you never really know. And that kind of brings up something that we were talking about the other day, Lyndsey. And, when with Alzheimer's or dementia, these dementing diseases in general, the grief process that a family goes through, there's really two stages of that, right? Because you lose the person that you've known, before you actually lose the person.
Right. I think Alzheimer's and dementia are one of the few diseases that ends up being harder on the caregiver in the end than it is on the person that has the disease. And that's why all the things you guys were just talking about for the past few minutes, it's kind of blaring the alarm of why that early detection is so important, because it also gives you more time to plan, be autonomous, decide what you want the end of your life to look like. So that's not additional stress and burden put on your family and when the time comes. And
who you want to take care of you too.
Right.
I mean, you have the opportunity to decide. And I always, get some backups, because if someone's not available, we need to have, a backup, and you get to choose that at this point. With a guardianship, you're not always choosing,
right?
It's not like, oh, so-and-so, it's just, it's the last resort. So I always say, planning is so important, but, talking of Alzheimer's, in families, one of the questions that, I have is whether or not it's hereditary. Does it run in families? Because everybody assumes that it is, and I'm going to assume that it is, but I don't want it to be.
I'll say yes and no. So what we see is that the more first-degree relatives you've had in your family, parent, sibling, who have the Alzheimer's disease, the more increased your own risk is.
Okay.
And there are also genes that increase your risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. So it does increase your risk, but it's not a guarantee if you've had 10 people in your family with Alzheimer's that you will as well.
Okay. So it's, lifestyle probably has a little bit to do with it, like it always does, right? Like they always say. So, I guess there is hope even if you have a diagnosis, there is hope. There's a lot of, things that we can do now with treatments that are slowing the progression. So that's really exciting.
Yep. And if you've been diagnosed, just give a call to the helpline at 800-272-3900.
That's perfect. Yeah, we highly recommend getting as much help from the Alzheimer's Association as you can. They have wonderful support. Thank you so much for listening.